full time. So I knew I could take care of them, and I certainly loved them. I was concerned that all of a sudden mom wasn't in the picture. And I knew from my own mother that that need of having, in my children's case, is that cuddling sensation of mom that's there for you was no longer there. And I was searching for a way to make up for what maybe I couldn't provide. I mean, let's face it, we were the Garlands. We had 3 boys. You had Scott, Barry, and none of us were cuddly. And my mom, literally went through hell because, we didn't, if she wanted to baby us, no, get away, Mom, right? So my mother survived because of Kathy Rooney. Kathy became her daughter, and luckily she was only 1 stone wall away. So to this day, to her dying day, Kathy was her saving grace. And I had that feeling in the opposite direction of all of a sudden Mom being gone. So we talked about things we could do together as a family unit, and both of them decided they wanted to travel. And so we worked up a system in 2003, and every year we chose a different country that we were going to go to, and we were going to hike, and we were going to explore, and we were going to rent a car. And for 12 years, we went to a different country every year. And we put some mileage on. We hiked glaciers, we bungee jumped in Italy, we did glaciers in New Zealand, basically, more countries than I can count. That went on for 12 years, and at that point in time, by 2018, it was time for me to retire. I was 70 years old when I retired, 70 and a half, and in 18. And I had to wait to do the Appalachian Trail. By then, I had hiked every trail in South Carolina. There was no trail that I hadn't hiked. I'd worn them out. And I'm OCD enough to know I don't want to hike the same trail twice. I want something different. So the next thing in line was the Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail, for those of you who heard of it, it starts down by Dahlonega, Springer Mountain in Georgia, and it passes through 14 states, ending at Mount Katahdin in Maine. It comes through the western part of Massachusetts, through North Adams, and I'm sorry, I haven't gone so long, I don't remember these names of these towns. It goes up over Mount Greylock, and then it goes up into Vermont, and then it goes through New Hampshire, which was, to this day, still the toughest hiking section. I spent 15 days in New Hampshire trying to get the AT done. 14 of them it rained. It was the most miserable hiking of my life. But the AT, they say, if you tackle the AT, it will change your life. And I can tell you, it did change my life. Like the Central American hikes, where that made me realize and appreciate what we had, and appreciate having a hamburger, or appreciate needing a Band-Aid and one was right there. This made me appreciate life in general, or what we experienced not living out in a tent every night, because this was 6 months in the field, sleeping in a tent every night, through every kind of rain, lightning, snow. I experienced every bit of it in this 6 months. Now in 2018, I did not make it all the way through. I got to Maine, and they flipped a switch, and I hit the deck. I had vertigo so bad, it was like being in a kaleidoscope, where you couldn't tell up, you couldn't tell down, you couldn't tell anything, and I could not move. I laid there for hours because I was hiking by myself, and one couple finally came, and they felt like, well, maybe I was dehydrated because I drank all my water, so they went down to a beaver pond and got some fresh beaver water out and brought it to me, and I downed about 3 liters of it. Well, that didn't help one bit. And then about an hour after that, Rich Reese, who was a fellow that I had met on the trail, he found me because he'd come back looking for me, because I was always ahead of him, and for some reason I was behind him, and he found me laying on the ground. And by then there was a forecast of rain coming in for an hour. It was going to last 24 hours. He said, "What do you want?" DFib. That was my name, DFib. I said, "Please put up the tent, drag me in it, we'll ride it out in the tent." 18 hours later, it'd been pouring. I was not improved one bit. So we called rescue, and they hauled me off in a soak basket, and then 3 hours in an ambulance to Skowhegan, Maine, where I spent quite a long time in there with no resolution of why this was happening. All the normal things you've heard of why vertigo happens, none of them pertain to me. So they finally decided that I had gotten bacteria through my filter system of getting water, and it had caused an infection to my eardrum, and it had swollen so bad I was no longer getting a signal from front to back, and that's why I was dizzy. 3.5 years later, I was still dizzy. So by 2021, I was bored. I wanted to finish the trail. I'd made it 850 miles the first time. I still had another 1,400 to go. So I took my hiking sticks to hold me up, and I went and tackled it again. I picked up where I left off. I hiked those 1,400 miles, and when I got done, I decided I would do it again. What I'd already done, because I'm OCD, I wanted to hike the whole trail in 1 year. That was the big deal. Nobody on earth cares, but I cared because I wanted to say I'd hike the whole trail in 1 year. It's a big deal. I can't buy a cup of coffee with it, but I wanted to do it. That right there was the trail that, can you go back one? I'll touch base again on our names. Basically, if you hike these trails, you get a trail name. You cannot name yourself. You get the trail name given to you, which is very scary. So initially, when you get out there, you are hoping that you get a trail name that you can actually talk about in public, because you could very well get a name that, and people did get those names. So in this case, this is Appalachian Al. He was 67 years old at the time. This was me, I was 71. And this is Free Fall, which you can tell how she got that name. She had a tendency to fall every 15 feet, so her trail name became Free Fall. For me, hiking out of Georgia, when we first started, I had climbed Mount Albert, which was a very, very straight up mountain in Georgia. And at the top of the mountain was a fire tower. So after you're climbing this mountain, then you climb a fire tower, and you had a really cool view up there. So you couldn't breathe to look at it, but you knew it was a nice view and you're supposed to really enjoy it. So I climbed back down. There were 5 or 6 other guys there. Didn't know any of them. We had just gotten going. We were maybe 40, 50 miles in on this trail. We talked so long, we enjoyed each other's company so much that we wasted the time to the point that we weren't going to make it our goal of trying to get our first 20 miles in. I finally decided I had to get hiking. And I mistakenly said, as I'm trying to push myself up and realizing I had stiffened up to the point that my legs wouldn't bend, I mistakenly said, it's going to take a defibrillator to shock me back on the trail. So basically, I was a medic by then. Defibrillator was part of my language, and I felt like the only way I was going to hike again was somebody put the pads on me and defibrillated me to get me electrically on the trail. I became defibrillator on that day. So whatever you said, you were going to get stuck with it if you weren't careful. Now, I lasted that way for about 4 or 5 days, but we found out real fast that not many people out there could say a word that was 5 syllables long. That was way too much to say out there. So they shortened it to defib, and to this day, when I'm hiking, people know me as defib. And when you hike these trails, they don't look for Wayne Garland showing up at a motel after 3 weeks. They say, where's defib? You identify yourself by your trail name. People will contact me now, and I got no idea who we're talking about. Right? And they'll talk and talk, and I'm sitting there going, who is this, who is this, who is this? And then finally she'll say, it's me, it's not dead yet. Oh, it's not dead yet. Yeah, how are you? Or it's Caboose, or it's Appalachian Al, or it's Free Fall, or it's Hawkeye. You know, whatever the person's name is, what you live with the rest of your days. This is the toughest section of the AT. This is 1 mile of Mahoosic, and I put that in there wrong. I don't know why I was thinking about sleeping maybe, but it was Mahoosic Notch. It's 1 mile of trail. Normally I average 2.5, 2.6 miles an hour with the backpack on. This 1 mile took me 5.5 hours to get through. Now, in that case, this is a point at which you say you can see you're climbing down into a big hole. The reason Al was with me, Appalachian Al was with me, and I lost him. He never came out. I sat and waited for him forever and came back, and he had fallen and landed on a rock like this down below. And he had a lot of pain right here, and he had to wait until that pain backed off long enough to get moving again. When we finished the hike and we got off the trail, we found he had 2 broken ribs. He finished the last 300 miles with 2 broken ribs. Next slide. This is what it was like. We'd climb through the tunnels. You'd fight your way out. The next one.
Any ice in it?
No, it was dry. It was dry. This one here, the hole to get in was so small that I had to take my pack off and drop it down the hole, not knowing how far down it was. But in this case, I would drop the pack, and then I would climb my way down to it. We're going to flip back now a little bit more on Mahoosic Notch. I had met during the end, because in the very beginning, I'm in my 70s, and most of these hikers are 20, 30, 40 years old. So I'm hiking with people much younger than me. But as time went on, I did meet Appalachian Al, who was 67, Landslide, who was also 67, and Professor T, who was an electrical engineer, professor at the University of Vermont, and he was 69. We called ourselves the AARP Hikers Group. So through this one section that we just showed, about 10 miles, Al went down with broken ribs. Landslide made it to the top of Mahoosic Arm. He was so happy about it. He was coming off the top of the mountain. There was water standing on top of the mountain. There were bog boards. You could walk to stay out of the water. He was walking along. It was slip. He slipped off the board. His leg went up under the board and broke his leg. It took us hours to get him out of there. Professor T made it about 4 more miles. We were coming off Little Bigelow Mountain. He came and he slipped on gravel. The trail was about this deep because the water, as it washed down over the years, it made it deeper and deeper. So you were literally hiking, and the trail edge was like here. When he fell off it, he fell on one of those small pine trees that grew along. They have little short, stubby pine trees, and they had clipped him. He went, and the thing went in one side of his calf and out the other side. And then as he continued to fall, it ripped out as he got down below it. So within 10 miles, I lost 3 of the 4 guys I was hiking with. Well, I didn't lose Al. He kept going. He was just, I always told him, I said, if I ever had to organize another platoon for Vietnam, I wanted him on that platoon because he was tough as nails. This is Mount Washington. The day we went up there, when we started, it was so beautiful. And, as we climbed up, when we first left, there was a parking lot down there, and people were in flip-flops and shorts, the tourists that are going to go up on top of the mountain, getting on Cog Railroad. And we hiked past it. It was a beautiful day, and we were feeling good about it. Well, the more we climbed, more and more cloudy it became, until we get to the point on the top, and it's raining sideways, and the winds at this point in time were 70 miles an hour. And of course, we're hiking it, the trail is up there, and it touches the sign. You can't do the AT if you don't touch the sign. That's what it's about. You don't dare walk away without touching that sign. So, let me hit the next one. Okay. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm on the summit of Mount Washington. And, wow, what are you doing up here? I'm trying to get back down off the mountain. And it's a combination of kind of crab walking. Lovely day on Mount Washington. Great to see all of you. Keep out. Get out of here. Okay. So a lot of people. I write it's not a blog. I write on Facebook. I write my story every day. Whatever happens. I did that for my mother. Because she used to harass me because she says, Wayne, you're so old and you're hiking all over the world. I need to know what's going on. And several times we posted a picture. One day we posted a picture in Georgia, and a bunch of people from my home had come out to meet me. And we went to a local restaurant, a barbecue restaurant. We were having a great time. Somebody took a picture with a flash, and I happened to be the one sitting closest to the flash. And I came out white, and everybody else came out South Carolina tan. My mother wrote on Facebook, "You're dying. What's wrong with you? You're going to go to the hospital. You need to get off a trail." All of a sudden, I was getting hundreds of letters from those following the stories, concerned about my impending death. So I called my mother. I said, Mom, you can't do that. I mean, this is really a problem. I said, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll write the stories every day, and I will write exactly what's happening to me. If I'm angry, I'll write it. If I'm happy, I'll write it. If I'm sad, if I'm tired, whatever is happening, you're going to know what's happening to me. And I won't hold back anything from you. I will tell what's going on. So I started doing that, and from that day on, she never bothered me. Matter of fact, she shared it with everybody up here at Millhouse, because everybody there was following the stories of my hike. When she broke her hip, I got off the trail to come help her, And she was mad as a hornet. She was so mad when I got to her. I said, Mom, don't worry about it. We told you